Welcome back to The Perspective. You are still with us with Miss Nadine Alexandra, spokesperson for Java Mountain Coffee. So, Nadine, earlier we touched a little bit about some of the gender issues, gender equality issues that a lot of coffee farmers are, women coffee farmers are facing. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so as I had mentioned before, women coffee farmers actually do 60% of the work on the farms, but they only earn 10% of total household income, and they only own 1% of the land. Now, there's a beautiful little fact provided by the UNFAO, and they've stated that if women farmers have the same amount of access as their male counterparts to agricultural practices and education, they will be able to increase yields by 20 to 30%. That extra 20 to 30% can actually feed 100 to 150 million people and lift them out of hunger. You know, so gender equality is very much a big issue, and time again we're seeing that you know, exempting women from having the same resources, exempting women from the same opportunities is actually not doing anybody any good. So you know, that's why this is one of our main objectives, which is to empower these women farmers.
We've established that there's a problem with it. 60% of the manual work to produce coffee are done by women, and yet they only produce like only 10% of the household income. What are some of the steps that Java Mountain Coffee is taking to resolve this kind of issue?
So there are two things that we're doing. The first is with this Java Mountain Women's Coffee Cooperative, and then you know the next thing, which is Bali Mountain Women's Coffee Cooperative. With these two cooperatives, we're ensuring that these women's livelihoods they're paid equal amounts
with their male counterparts,
and for the amount of work that they're doing, and we're, you know, that is a very not short-term sort of goal, but we want to make sure that in the future they will also be able to protect their livelihoods. So it's just sort of like the initial steps that you're taking, that we are going to ensure that they're going to be paid equal amounts. Yes, exactly. How are they doing that, however? The companies how can you ensure that these women are being paid the same amount of money? So once we have the international certifications with Fair Trade and Rainforest Alliance, we will be able to send a premium directly back to these women farmers. And then, you know, through a democratic process, they will be able to decide as a community what they want to do with that. But because that's essentially what a cooperative is, isn't it? Exactly. Like, so all the members within the cooperative have a say in how to run the enterprise. So that's one of the steps that we're taking. But the other side of it is we want to empower them, and empowerment means education and proper capacity building. And that is via our sustainable program. So some data about climate change and its effects on coffee production here in Indonesia. Just this year's harvest saw a 40 to 50% decrease from last year's coffee harvest, and that was an observation made by local stakeholders. And you know, there's a lot of talk I see in the media about climate change. You know, is it really real? Is it not? But the effects are being felt here and now, not by you and me, but the people who are out there at the front lines, these women farmers. And that is projected to get even worse. So the Climate Institute actually estimates that by 2050, half of the world's growing coffee growing area will actually be not suitable to grow coffee anymore. So that's in Indonesia? In the world. In the world. And that's by 2050. And you compare that with, so Conservation International, based on current global consumption data for coffee, they estimate that to match the demand, the production will have to increase by 3 times. 3 times. So if you look at these things, you know, it's really hard to deny that climate change is affecting our, at least our agricultural production. Yeah, exactly. So with the Sustainable Program, working with the Indonesian Coffee and Cocoa Research Institute, which is a 112-year-old institution, with them we are equipping these women farmers with proper agricultural practices. And also one of our commitments is to have 3 million, to plant, 3 million climate-resistant coffee and shade trees by 2030. That will ensure that their livelihoods will be protected. In the future.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about sustainable distribution. I understand you have a partnership with
Yes.
Massimo Zanetti Beverage Group.
Yes, exactly.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
So very recently, and this is, I think, a really wonderful, great big step that we're taking, which is we have this Asian Sustainable Coffee Distribution Partnership with Massimo Zanetti's Asian subsidiary, which is
Right.
Bon Cafe International. And so Bon Cafe International will roast and package farm fresh coffee from Java Mountain Coffee's 2 locations, which is in Ciwidey in West Java and also Batu Karu in Bali. And with this partnership, that means we will be able to offer sustainable coffee to Asia. And currently, Bon Cafe International distributes to Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and
Right,
Hong
so
Kong.
they've got a lot of network connections going on.
Yes.
And when you said that they're going to be working with Java Mountain Coffee, did you mean they were going to be working with all women's cooperative, or just or mainly with Java Mountain Coffee?
Mainly with Java Mountain Coffee, but
Okay.
it's mainly with Java Mountain Coffee. But 10% of those sales
Will
from
go
Bon
into
Cafe
the-
International will go into the Women's Empowerment and Innovation Fund, which
Okay.
will fund the sustainable program, and that is also where we're funding, for example, paying for the international certifications, which come at a very
Right.
costly.
Is that
price.
also where is the funding also going to go into educating the women
Yes.
and the skills that they need?
Yes, so that's exactly what's part of the sustainable program with the Indonesian Coffee and Cocoa Research Institute. So there's an education program in teaching them how to
Right.
have sustainable coffee
And
growing
as I understand
practices.
it, this is actually the first all-women's coffee production farmers cooperative.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
And so, as you had actually mentioned earlier, cooperatives started popping up in Indonesia since the 1920s, but this
Right.
is the first time there is an all-women's
All-women's.
coffee cooperative.
All right. We will be talking more about the cooperative and its public reception, the reception that it gets from the public. Stay tuned with us on The Perspective.